Okay, we are going to need to review a little bit of work with circles here and just recall our equations. And this is one of our conic sections, just so you know. Um, this is not on your note sheet, but we are going to be looking at different conic sections this unit. Basically, a conic section is a figure that can be obtained by slicing a double cone. There's 4 types of conic sections possible, depending on which way you slice the cone. I know you've done a lot of work with parabolas already in your math career, and we are actually not going to touch parabolas this unit because we're not going to have the time to go back and review those. But I do want to look at circles, ellipses, and hyperbolas. And I know you've done circles before. Ellipses and hyperbolas are new. Just a reminder that here is the basic equation for a circle. The things that are in parentheses give you your h and your k, which is, of course, the center of your circle. And then, of course, you have the radius there. And we will talk about this as we go. Okay? So here is a circle that I want you to graph, and then I want you to be able to figure out the radius of. Okay? So clearly, I think you can handle graphing this. It's at -1, -5 is the center of the circle. And that's already plotted for you. And then it has a radius of 2 units. And so basically that means I'm going to go 2 units in any direction from the center of that circle and draw a circle as best you can. Okay? So there's the graph of it. If I were to make the equation of it, of course, it would go like this. X minus, and then the x coordinate of your center, which is -1, which then, of course, you're going to do the boom boom there, and you'll notice that it becomes x plus 1. And then y minus -5, which of course you do the boom boom and it becomes +5. And then this should be 2 squared, which of course you know simplifies to 4. And that would be the equation for a circle whose center is -1, -5 and has a radius of 2. All right, this one's a little bit trickier. Basically it says that the endpoints of the diameter are at -4, 1 and 4, -5. So you have those there, which basically means that your circle will look something like this. And that's certainly not a perfect shape, but it will look something like this. So in order to make an equation, the first thing you need to know is where the center is. And if this is the diameter, you know that the center will be halfway in between there somewhere. And so you need to use the midpoint formula to figure out the center. Okay? So when I use the midpoint formula, remember that you average the x's and you average the y's. So I will add -4 plus 4 divided by 2 and 1 plus -5 divided by 2. Well, -4 plus 4 is 0, divided by 2 is 0, and 1 plus -5 is -4, divided by 2 would be -2. So this gives me the center of my circle. Okay, so the center is at 0, -2, which I did actually a pretty good job of estimating that. Here's the center of your circle at 0, -2. Okay? Then what I want to know, or want to be able to find out, is I want to be able to find out the radius. And of course, in order to find out the radius, I need to know that distance right there, or I could have chosen the other half too. But basically, I want to know the distance, let's say, between the center of the circle, which is 0, -2, and either one of the endpoints. It doesn't matter which one you choose, -4, 1, or 4, -5. It doesn't matter. I am going to choose 4, -5. Okay, and so then of course you'll use the distance formula, which you know is x2 minus x1. So 4 minus 0 squared plus y2 minus y1. And then the square root of all that. And of course that becomes boom boom. So you'll have 4 minus 0 is 4, squared is 16. -5 plus 2 is -3, squared is 9. So of course you'll have the square root of 25, which of course is 5. Okay, so my radius is 5 there. So this distance right here is 5. And then if you're going to make the equation, of course, you're going to put the center and the radius in there. So you'll have x minus 0, which of course you won't need the 0 there, squared, plus y minus -2 squared equals 5 squared. And of course, I know you know how to simplify that, and the equation would end up looking like this. And that is the equation for my circle in this case. Okay. The next one, the center is at 3, -2. I've already got that plotted there. And tangent to the y-axis. What that means is it butts up to the y-axis. The circle butts up to the y-axis in this case. So the edge of the circle has to brush the y-axis like that. That's what tangent to it means. So basically, if it's brushing up to the y-axis, you're going to have a circle that looks something like this. And I estimated that pretty roughly, but it's going to look something like this. If it butts up to the y-axis, then you know that this is your radius right here, and it's 3. Of course, if it were to butt up to the x-axis, that would make a smaller circle. But it butts up to the y-axis in this case, brushes against it, and that's what tangent to it means. Radius 3, center 3, -2. So you'll go, oops, not y, sorry, x minus my x-coordinate of my center squared plus y minus my y-coordinate, y minus -2 squared equals my radius squared. And of course you can simplify that. I could probably do this all in one step for you, but just to make sure you know that's what it would look like in the end. All right, this time I gave you the equation and I want you to be able to give me the center. So here's the x-coordinate of your center. Here's the y-coordinate of your center. Remember the formula has minus in it. So when you pull it out, it's always going to be the opposite sign. So when I pull it out, it'll be 4 and 1. And of course, this right here is your radius squared. So then your radius is the square root of 9, which of course is 3. Okay? And then if you were to plot that, you will graph the point 4, 1 and a radius of 3. So I'm going to go 3 to the right, 3 up, 3 to the left, and 3 down. And of course, make your circle. All right, and then this one doesn't have an x-coordinate here, so it would be 0, 3. And then the radius, again, this is the radius squared, so the radius will be the square root of 1, which of course is 1. So I have the center 0, 3, and then a radius of 1. So I will go 1 up, 1 right, 1 down, 1 left. There you go, just like that. All right, then these are not as obvious because you don't have the equations in standard form, okay? So what you're going to need to do on these is you are going to actually need to complete the square, and you're going to have to complete the square once with the x value and once with the y value in order to get these in standard form so that you can figure out the radius and the center, okay? So here's what you're going to want to do. You are going to want to, first of all, make sure that any constant values you have, anything without a variable in it, is on the right-hand side of the equation. In this case, I don't have anything without a variable in it, so I don't need to worry about that. Then I'm going to group my x values next to each other. So I will group my x squared term and my x term, and then I'm going to leave a blank in there. Okay? And then, of course, I'm going to group my y squared term and my y term, and I will leave a blank in there. Okay? And then of course you had 0 over here. And then this blank over here requires a blank on this side. And this blank requires a matching blank on that side. Okay? So you're basically going to complete the square twice, once with your x values and once with your y values. So when I do the x values here, I will go half of my middle term, and of course half of 8 is 4, so I will go 4 right there. When I square 4, I get 16. That's what goes in this blank and in this blank. Okay. Then I'll do my y values, and half of -6 right here is -3. Square that, and I get 9, and that goes here and here. So when I add that right side together, 0 plus 16 plus 9 is 25, okay? And now that it's in standard form, it's pretty easy to see that your center is at -4, +3, and your radius is 5, okay? So -4, +3. Let's see, I'm going to do this again. -4, +3, and your radius is 5. And so your circle, when you graph it, whoa, I missed that bad, sorry. Your circle, when you graph it, should look something like that. Okay? And the last one, very similarly, okay, again, you need to make sure that if you have a constant value that you move it to the other side and then group your x values with your x values and your y's with your y's. So I am going to group my x squared with my x term, this one and this one together, and then leave a blank behind it. Okay, and then my y squared, I don't have anything else to group it with. So I'm just going to do y squared. I don't need to complete the square on that. It's just plain and fine. And then, of course, I move that 8 over to the other side. And then this blank right here requires a matching blank to the right. Okay, so I'm going to need a blank over there. All right, again, half of the middle number, half of 4 is 2. Square that number and I get 4. And if 4 goes there, 4 also goes here. So I have this. And then on the right-hand side, 8 plus 4 is 12, of course. Okay, so your center will be -2, 0. And then your radius would be, the radius squared is 12, so the radius is the square root of 12, which of course can break down to 2 root 3. But when you graph it, it's helpful to have a decimal. And when you get a decimal value for there, the decimal value for that is 3.46. I actually want this answer right here. If I were to ask you just what the radius is, I would want you to answer 2 root 3. But when you go to graph it, that value is not very helpful. You kind of need to have a decimal. Okay, so the center is at -2, 0. And then my radius is 2 root 3, which as a decimal value is 3.46, about 3.5. So I'm going to go about 3.5 up, and about 3.5 to the left, and about 3.5 down, and about 3.5 to the right. And there's where my circle should end up. Not perfect and pretty, but pretty close. Okay? And that should be a little review of circles for you.